Good morning, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. On my far right is Kidi Mwaga, who is public policy analyst. Good morning, Kidi. Thank you for your time. Also doubles up as a lawyer. Arnold Maliba on his immediate left is also public policy analyst. Arnold, good morning.
Good morning, Ayub.
Thank you for your time. Nominated senator is the only lady in the House, Gloria Orwoba. Thank you for your time and company.
Good morning.
And Anthony Buluma Samba is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association. Lady and gentlemen, your time is all appreciated. A lot on the front pages of the publications, including the book that continues to detail what happened in the run-up to the August last year general elections, and Raila's blunder, says Itabawale Kanchori, on Karua running met despite the reservations that President Uhuru Kenyattas then had. It's back to the street, says Azimio leader Raila Odinga. Yesterday pointed out 5 key issues at Ufungamano in what he says will be people-driven by partisan talks in parallel with the demonstrations that will be happening. And also, I don't trust Ruto, top UN official says in leaked papers. That is Amina Mohammed, who in her conversation with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, tapped by the spy agencies in the US following the leaked documents which covered across the world and leaders, including in Egypt and in Ukraine, following the concerns over the Pentagon leaks in the United States of America, and that she does not trust President William Ruto, according to the leaks that were done. May I begin with you, Arnold? And it seems that the dust is yet to settle, and this in the context of the Azimio coalition political party. And Saitabawale Kanchori still maintains that, according to his book, President Uhuru Kenyattas was reserved about Mother Karua's running mate. And he further says in the book, in continuation of what we started yesterday, that even with his painful experience and the clear telltale signs of warnings on IEBC, Odinga could not see how the election could possibly be stolen from him this time round with dependency on state machinery. I mean, does this reveal the true account from your analysis, or otherwise is it bringing to fore the disorganization of the campaign and how Azimio managed their campaigns?
I think what we get from Saitabao now speaks to what we've always known and actually said continuously, that there was too much chaos. You know, the chaos in the Azimio setting was too loud. You cannot hear their protestations now. And the only problem with that particular line is the push or the desire to have this line that something was stolen. The thieving of elections, the stealing, the fraud bit of it. Somehow we are selling the narrative that you cannot just win an election. Out of the 1,882 positions that were vacant and people were running for, somehow all of them were good, except the presidency, which then makes as in 1,800 seats were okay, except for the president and the deputy. The line about thieving, the fraud bit of it, is that both at the counting level and the Supreme Court actually did not find any foul play. So I know Azimio is talking about opening the server, but I don't think there's a better server than reading the chief agent's confessions. There is a bigger server, as in Saitabao has opened the server. There's no server. And even if we were to insist and push about opening servers, in Maina Kiai's case in 2017, it literally limits what a server is, because the server is actually a complementary mechanism to how we compile our results, the presidential results. So you then have to ask this question. There was a pen test that was given, a penetration test, so if you talk about the technical end of it, during the Supreme Court process. They looked at it. There's a whole report to that particular end. What we are actually being treated to are juggling of technical words here and there. And because, you know, the people are not interested with those particular ends, the biggest issue at the moment is actually the cost of living. So instead of talking about what the government is doing and what the people of Kenya are doing, for example, if you go across the country and somehow the media has actually not been very good towards actually executing that agenda, people are on their farms it's raining and people are farming. We are not highlighting that. Today, of course, the nation has tried talking about the mismanagement of fertilizer.
Yes.
So there's so much that is going on. There is what the people themselves. You know, this country is largely where it is because of our hard work as individuals. So we're not talking about that as much. So the people are concerned about the cost of living. So these other aspect about the elections is so much about the top cream within Azimio. And so long as, you know, there's nothing that is in the server that can impeach Article 34, not Article 34A, but Form 34A.
All right.
Because the results at the polling station as declared are final.
Okay.
So what is in the server is complementary. Because at the end of the day, Chebukati waited for those physical forms to come for compilation.
Okay, at the National Talent Center, which is at the Bomas of Kenya. Senator, what do you make of the revelations that Saita Bawa has detailed in his book before we proceed to the other topics which are also important?
First, I have to say that Saita Bawa is an example of a bad employee because first, as much as he is coming out with a big expose and everything, for me, I tend to think of it in the sense that I don't know, these people don't have non-disclosure agreements because I can't even begin to imagine that if they don't bend to the demands that he wants, what else he will tell us, because we might finally find out the truth that actually ODM not only did it lose, but it lost terribly, you know. In fact, the truth that I'm waiting to hear is that these allegations that, the elections were stolen and that the only way Kenya Kwanza won was because they stole the elections. I'm waiting to see, because Saita Bawa is going to get very frustrated and he will even come with evidence that, in fact, the people who tried to steal the elections were ODM. So for me, there are two things. As an employee, because he worked and he served a team, an organization, you can say he was employed, even if he volunteered. I feel it is in bad taste to come out with the big reveal now because maybe, his needs were not met. But you can tell that he's also frustrated because he understands that this whole demonstrations and this whole narrative that ODM is actually putting out is false. So his frustration is that on top of actually not listening to all the advice that we had been giving on how to win this election, you're actually going to go out and claim these people stole the election. So for me, I wouldn't want to say that I'm waiting for more people to come out because I come from the corporate world, and as a person who has worked for an organization or for an individual, I think it is in bad taste to, and maybe political parties actually should look into signing non-disclosure agreements.
Thank you. Yes, Anthony.
Yeah, I must say that I entirely agree with the sentiments shared by both Senator and Arnold Maliba, and proceed further to propose that I think what Kanchori has done is literally showcase how an organized campaign can either give you victory or deny you victory. I think all of us live in Kenya, and we were watching what was going on. We know for a fact that consistently they kept saying Ruto's campaign appeared to be more organized, in the sense that he understood that he was racing against not just Raila Odinga, but an entire government infrastructure. I think going by what the revelations from Kanchori, you get the impression that there was some sort of comfort within the Azimio camp. And the unfortunate thing is that despite all this knowledge, as a country, we are still refusing to move on from the elections fever. We're still stuck in the fact that we are claiming rigging and all those things. I think, to be fair to the situation we are in terms of our economics, I think it's about time, based on these revelations, that we admit and say, okay, this was done, so plan for future. But I also want to assume that the interventions or activities by the opposition are geared towards strengthening themselves within the space of opposition. Because, I mean, with all this revelation, and like what Arnold said, that if a chief agent comes, on broad daylight and admits that the situation as is, we actually lost the election, I don't think you can look for any other validation beyond that. Plus, again, he's attributed to so many factors to do with mismanagement. You can't blame it on the judiciary, you can't blame it on anybody but yourself. I remember that one of the things that Azimio kept bringing up was that we've lost before, but purely on the account that they were disengaged with the system, so-called system. And the assurance they kept giving their supporters was that this time round is the last bullet, based on that confidence. So I don't know if there is any other way you could have beaten Ruto beyond what they were given. So I think what Kanchori is actually helping us to do is if there are those stages of grieving, this should actually be the final one. So that we move from grieving to now start asking ourselves, what next for our country?
Okay, Kidimaga, what do you make of this? I'll talk about, Senator, the non-disclosure agreements and what ought to be shrouded in secrecy and, of course, in terms of the confidentiality aspect. Yes, Kidi, what's your account of what's happening?
I think that it is not proper to admonish Kanchori because citizens of this country deserve to know, especially how our politics are organized. One, because of the emotions involved. Secondly, because of what is at stake. There are so many Kenyans who had placed their hope and faith in Raila Odinga. And therefore, for an election that was Raila's to lose, to again be lost, simply because there was, disorganization, as the chief agent is coming out to tell us, is sad at best and very frustrating at worst. Frustrating because, we were here in 2017 and we have been here before. And then look at where now all this has brought us. That 7 months after election, we are again attempting to relitigate the question of who got elected to the office of the president. But as my brother Arnold Maliba pointed out, that the Court of Appeal in the Maina Kiai case pointed out very clearly that Form 34A is an impeachable results. So that at the very least we should see there's a Mio telling us, because I'm speaking to the question of the server, that when you say that the votes were stolen, let us see a compilation of Form 34As that are speaking to the story that the whistleblower is saying that Azimio had 8 million votes. Okay. So to this extent, I think Kanchori has done a good job in putting out to the country what eventually actually transpired and in how we can manage our elections better going forward. Okay, and when we get back from the break, we take a look at the front page, of course, of the Standard newspaper, shifting gears to what the opposition says is back to the streets following the 5-point demand that they yesterday agreed with the people they met at Ufungamano. And Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, Kalonzo Musyoka all said that the talks and the protests will continue in parallel. Part of what he said, that we're not doing this because of any weakness on our side. We are only doing this because Kenya is bigger than all of us, and that's why we want to engage the people. We'll be talking about that, and also the other story on page number 3 of the Daily Nation as we continue and progress with the broadcast here. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. More after the break here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.